I want to return to these calls from the UK and others, including France, to recognise Palestine's statehood, effectively putting the onus on the Israelis to end the war in Gaza and not acknowledging the fact that Hamas itself is a terrorist group. They did dreadful things on October 7, killing babies, raping women. We all know what happened on that date. So while the UK and other Western nations are in effect playing into Hamas's hands, Arab and Muslim countries, and I was unaware of this, including Saudi, the Qataris, Egypt, Jordan and Turkey, have signed a declaration condemning for the first time Hamas's onslaught on October 7, going as far as to call for them to disarm themselves. Joining me now to discuss this, the Deakin University Global Islamic Politics Chair, Professor Greg Barton. Good to see you again, Greg. Now, it's not just the Arab League that signed up this declaration. There are other countries, but how significant would you call this to have these Arab and Muslim nations putting their weight behind this?
Steve, this is a moment of opportunity. It's a moment of crisis, of course, but it's also a moment of opportunity. I noticed, just earlier today that retired Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, the former IDF spokesman, has a long tweet on X saying exactly that Israel needs to seize this opportunity when finally the Arab states have woken up and found the courage to condemn Hamas. Israel needs to engage with the negotiation rather than just, critically back away from it, because things will only get worse unless we have engagement at this point.
In your experience, has that group of nations got together to make a statement like this about one of these rogue organisations in the Middle East, whether it be Hezbollah or Hamas or others?
I've not seen such a large coalition and such a clear, coordinated statement, Steve. Of course, Gulf states such as the United Arab Emirates are very critical of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood and speak out against its activities in the Gulf. And it's the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood that is sort of the origin point for Hamas. And of course, they're also very critical of Hamas's sponsor, Iran. But this is the clearest, most coordinated statement we've had by this group of nations. And these are the nations that will rebuild Gaza and be part of finding a way out of this nightmare if it's to happen. Without their help, we can't see any way of things getting better. So it's really critically important to pay attention. Of course, they're under a lot of pressure domestically. The reason that they've been reluctant to criticize Hamas is not because they like Hamas. Far from it, just because they're fearful of domestic backlash from Hamas supporters.
What's Qatar's role in this? Because, it seems to be, I get very confused about where they stand in all of this. They have financially backed parts of these groups in the Middle East. Yes, they've had peace talks which have been held in Qatar itself, but what's their role here?
Yeah, I don't think we've got time to sort of get to the bottom of this, Steve. Qatar has played a complex role, let's put it that way, a role that many people have found convenient to support. Israel has funded over the last decade considerable funds to Hamas through Qatar. So it's been useful to have them not just for talks, sort of a Switzerland neutral zone, but also as a point of transaction of sending money. Of course, there's good reason to be critical of Qatar as well. I don't think it's entirely clear where Qatar stands, but I do think that it's necessary to have a place like Qatar in order to engage in talks, in order to find some way of getting out of this, because without negotiations, you're not going anywhere. So it's often popular to pile on Qatar, and I can understand that, but the reality is we actually need to be able to talk to people we don't like.
Greg, just briefly, UK's Keir Starmer, obviously he's not said that he'll recognise the Palestinian state yet, but he says he will if it gets to the point where they give back the hostages, lay down their arms and work with Israel on a ceasefire. He's gone about as close as he can to saying he'll back what the French have done. Where does that leave our Prime Minister, do you believe?
I think queued up to follow suit, Steve. I think that we're at a tipping point now. It's not that anyone's saying a two-state solution is easy, but the question is, we've had all this focus on tactics, and Netanyahu has really been tactically brilliant, but strategically, there's been nothing there. There's no plans for the day after. So for the people of Israel and Palestine to have a secure future, 7 million people in each community, there is no way to build a secure future unless we think about some sort of political solution. And as impossible as the two-state solution seems, there is no better solution unless you can have a one-state solution, but politically that's not viable. So I think that Australia is going to find itself under considerable pressure to join in Western democracies in saying we've got to work on a political solution. Three-quarters of the UN member states support or acknowledge Palestine. The ones that don't are primarily Western democracies and a few outliers like Japan as well. There's reasons why people have said it's just a symbolic move to declare support for a Palestinian state, but it's got to be seen in the context of trying to find a political solution and work strategically to lasting, to building security and peace for everyone in Israel and Palestine. It's easy to be critical about this, but the question's got to be asked is what plans do we have for the day after this war stops, and where do we go from here? Israel is weakened today compared with where it was 2 years ago, and that's a really tragic consequence along with the tragedy that's happening in the Gaza Strip. We need to talk about that.
We do indeed. Good on you, Greg. Great to catch up. Greg Barton there.